the scientific method. This lecture is critical and important, and I should tell you that it is not only applicable to biology. If you are studying psychology, this lecture is for you. If you are studying any social sciences, or if you want to conduct research, this lecture will be applicable almost every other form of generating knowledge out of any subject. So if you are involved in research in any type of sciences, whether it is like social sciences or traditional sciences, the scientific method and principles of learning are same. And with this class, I will going to help you to understand that what that scientific method is. It's a consistent. It's the same for biology. It's same for chemistry. It is same for psychology. It is same for mass communication, and it is same for every other subject you are studying. That's why you should know that what are the steps and stages which are involved in the generation of knowledge. Okay, my dear students, generation of knowledge, that is different than acquiring knowledge. You know, I'm teaching you, I know 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. And I'll tell you 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. That is not the generation of knowledge. That is just supposed to be the transfer of knowledge. That is something I know and I'm telling you. Generation of knowledge means that we will observe things which are new. We will create questions out of it. We will chase those questions and find the answers. This is what we call as generation of knowledge. So let's start with the first thing, that what are the stages which we should know in order to generate new knowledge. And those things and those stages are called as scientific method, and that is our first chapter of Biology 100. I usually ask my students about a question, start with this question that when you imagine a scientist, what type of picture came into your mind? You can draw it for me actually. Okay. आप लोगों ने मुझे क्या बताया? You people have just told me that whenever you imagine a scientist, you get the things in your mind like this, that there will be an old man, maybe bald. मैं ऐड कर रहा हूँ, शायद गंजा हो वो, maybe bald, glasses लगाई होंगी उसने, and little bit weird, the person who has spent all of his life for the sake of humanity and science, or maybe annoying, maybe not very much talkative, and trying to stay away from the other people, isolated, nerd, introvert, am I right? So most of the people, when imagine scientists, they think like this. And this is true. This is a very famous depiction of a scientist. Maybe some of you remember the movie that was the Back to the Future. The scientists are supposed to be like this. And some people thought that the scientists are the people who are very cruel people, who are actually experimenting with turtles, putting things within the turtle, changing their structure, and after they experiment, the turtles become like this. You know, the famous Ninja Turtle, they will become like this. So people thought about the scientists like that. But no matter what type of scientist you are, what type of knowledge you are trying to create, the stages and steps of generating knowledge are same. They are constant. And that is a very important reality to remember as a professor, as a student, as a professional, as a boss, which you will be in the future, or as any other person, that everything starts with a question. Yeah, I mean, if you have a knowledge, if you have a statement, if you have a line, which you can consider as a knowledge, remember that knowledge has started within a question. Long time ago, it was started as a question. So every knowledge which we are having today was once started with a question. And that is a very important and sensitive information which we use to avoid a lot in our communications. We discourage questions. We discourage students and people to ask and to share their questions. If you are generating new knowledge, then this will going to be your first stage of generation of a new knowledge. And one thing before I conclude this session, I will come back and I will restart talking about the stages after that. Some people thought that a professor or a teacher is supposed to be, he is the one who is going to transfer the knowledge to his students. Many people believe like that. He's going to transfer the knowledge to their students. I mean, it's like I have a bucket. मेरे सर में एक बाल्टी है knowledge की. I have a bucket of knowledge in my head. You people will come and I will, I will pour that bucket of knowledge to your mind. This is not at all what learning and teaching is. This will going to make another Dr. Mustafa. If I work 100% perfectly as a professor, I will transfer all of knowledge I am carrying to you. I will create another Dr. Mustafa, and the world do not need any other Dr. Mustafa. The world needs you. Whatever the hell you are, the world needs you. So I am supposed to be a person who should help you to generate knowledge instead of getting the knowledge which I am having. Of course, it is important to learn things from the other people, from me and from the other people. But if you don't know that how you will be able to generate your own knowledge, it will not possible to create your own personality as a contributor for the rest of the world. If you are studying psychology, you are learning things from your book. If you are learning mass communication or chemistry or computer sciences, you are reading stuff from the other people to develop and grow your knowledge. And then you will start asking questions. And that is where you are on the way of generating new knowledge. And that is where you will be able to contribute as a person. अगर हम सब लोग एक दूसरे का knowledge ले लें, that will be a copy paste. Computer science के लोग जानते हैं, that will be a copy paste. Like Dr. Mustafa, they will going to create 35 more Dr. Mustafa in terms of biology. Those 35 people will going to create more 35 Dr. Mustafa in terms of biology. That will not going to help our country to grow. We can grow only when we create individuals like 35 people using and generating their own knowledge. So after the break, we will see what are those steps which can help us to generate a new knowledge. And remember, if you will going to study or going to do research in social sciences, the principles will stay same. That is applicable to every knowledge. That will applicable to psychology, to mass communication, to social sciences, to history, to all other areas. You will see. You need to remember the steps, stages, and I will explain you with examples what that scientific method is. Okay, so see you after the break. Okay, here we go. So the generation of knowledge for every field of sciences and research is same. And most of the time, actually every time, it starts when you able to ask questions about certain phenomena which are going around you. Like I used to call those science-dan as a Babaji. If you remember the very famous story of Babaji Newton Babaji, if you remember the story of the Newton, he was sitting beneath the tree, an apple tree. आप और मैं होते ना, what क्या करते हैं हम लोग होते, एक एप्पल गिरता है, मैं तो एप्पल पकड़ता और खा लेता, है ना? we might.
जब एप्पल गिरता तो खा लेते उसको बस.
Yes, हाँ हम ऐसे करते ना, हम सारे एप्पल, मैं भी होता तो I will 200 रुपए किलो एप्पल है यार, if it is there I just try to eat it up. He did a different thing than the rest of the people. He asked a question out of that observation. He saw an apple falling from the tree. This is an observation. And the next thing, जो उसने हमसे अलग की, that makes him a different person altogether, is that he asked the question. So a person who is able to generate new knowledge, who is able to be a scientist, that person should have, number one, an observation skill, and using the observation he should be able to ask questions. Otherwise there will be no new knowledge, there will be no addition of any new knowledge without that critical phase of scientific method. So he observed an apple falling down from the tree, and then he asked the very famous question, किसने गिराया एप्पल को नीचे की तरफ? And then we came to know about the gravity and all that thing. So please, the first, looking at the things around you in a different way, looking at the things around you, different than other people. That what makes you different. For example, this is called the difference in the observation. Okay, I am sharing with some a little video from my own YouTube channel. I'm not asking you yet to subscribe me. Of course, you are my class. So I'm sharing my screen with you, so you should be able to see the video which I have made to share the concept that how observation of the same things will give you, will make you a different person. So whenever you observe things in a better way, in a different way, and you ask question, the next thing that you ask your question, that asking questions actually triggers the very special human instinct, that is investigation. You might agree with me, it's a very, very special human instinct. We want to know about the things which we don't know. फेसबुक में ना मार्क जुकरबर्ग को ये आइडिया आ गया जब पहली मरतबा उसने सोचा था, दैट्स व्हाई इज अ बिलियनर नाउ. उसको ह्यूमन इंस्टिंक्ट के बारे में पता लग गया दैट ह्यूमंस आर ऑलवेज वांटेड टू नो कि दूसरा बंदा क्या कर रहा है, वो कहाँ जा रहा है, वो क्या खा रहा है, किससे मिल रहा है, किसको लाइक कर रहा है, किसको नहीं लाइक कर रहा. We want to know about all these things, and that's how the Facebook is and the social media is actually growing and developing based on that principle. So when you observe and ask questions, that will trigger the investigation, human instinct, and that's how we try to chase that observation and we try to find the answer of the same things. For example, if we put a laser light, a simple laser light, it's a ये 20 रुपए की जो मिलती है, into a glass of water, you will see in a kid's perspective that when a laser light goes into the water, it slightly bends. When it touches the wall of the glass, it's reflected again. So looking at the same things as a kid will generate different type of questions. Looking to the same things as an adult will generate a different type of questions. It does not matter whether the questions are important or not. It does not matter whether the questions are logical or not. It does not matter whether the questions are stupid or brilliant. The thing which matters is that you should have questions after that observation. So scientific method are the ways in which scientists, following certain steps which I will be telling you, to answer questions and to solve the problems. These steps are fundamental, I told you, and is applicable to every other field. The first step of scientific method is to make observation. Everybody is looking towards a same phenomena in the same way, and one of the person just try to observe too keenly or in a different way, that person might have a better observation. The first stage, having an observation. A good observation leads to questions. The second thing, ask a question. Okay, let me help you in using. The second thing which you should know is to ask a question. From that question, we create certain answers based on our own understanding. Whatever the knowledge we are having, using that particular knowledge, we create certain answers of that question. ये इस वजह से हुआ होगा, ये इस वजह से हुआ होगा. Those statements which we believe might be the answer of that questions are called as hypothesis. Earlier, people like ancient Romans and other people, they were not experimentalists. They are very good in making hypotheses. A better scientist or a better person is the one who make a very interesting hypothesis, and that's all. So there are a lot of hypotheses about every phenomena. सूरज कैसे आता है, कैसे ग़रूब होता है, stars कहाँ आते हैं, कहाँ जाते हैं, दिन कैसे होता है, रात कैसे होती है. They have hypotheses for everything. But in scientific method, hypothesis might be a possible answer of that question, but it might be wrong as well. So we should find a way to test our hypothesis. Testing hypothesis is only done with the help of an experiment. That is the next stage. So after the hypothesis, you test your hypothesis with the help of a certain experiment. And then you analyze the results of that experiment. If the results support your hypothesis, that means you will get the answer of your question. Job is done, finish. If your results tells you otherwise, it will tells you otherwise, the answer is no. You have to go back and change your hypothesis again and repeat the cycle. If you get the answers as per your hypothesis, you will going to communicate that thing with the rest of the world. That is another part of scientific method. So number one, observation. Number two, asking questions. Number three, making hypothesis, and then testing your hypothesis, and then sharing your results with the rest of the world. That is important because that is how knowledge will grow. I observed something, I tested, I confirmed it. Now I have to share that thing with the other people. This is what we call as research articles or research papers. The research papers are one of the ways through which we communicate our knowledge with the other people. So let's understand that thing with the help of a certain observation. Let's try to use an example to understand these steps. So imagine a field trip of a biology class to a place जहाँ पर एक lake है, and the students are asked to go and observe the lake and the animals and the plants out there. And during their observation, they found that in that lake they found a frog with deformities. Some of the frogs, they don't have a proper leg, a proper forearm, ugly tongue. So that's a a weird thing. That is something very different. A frog with deformities. Typically, traditionally, normal frogs are like this. Normal frogs are like this. And the students on their field trip, they found the frogs with the deformities. So that's what we call as observation. Oh, it's interesting. It's different. What should be the next thing? The next thing is we should create questions out of our observations. Very simple. Why the frogs are deformed? There might be various possibilities. Why the frogs are deformed? My class, please help me in creating some questions. जो भी आपके दिमाग में आए, why the frogs are deformed? जी राहुल.
सर प्रॉब्ली जो लेक है उसमें काफी इम्प्योरिटीज हो सकती हैं जहाँ पे वो पैदा हुए.
शाबाश. ओके. सलमान ने कहा कजन मैरिजेस. सलमान, इट्स मजे की बात ये है, इट माइट बी करेक्ट. ओके, आई विल टेल यू. सलमान ने चैट में बताया मुझे.
सर हो सकता है कि सर हो सकता है कि जिस तालाब में वो रह रहे हो वहां कोई इंडस्ट्रियल वेस्ट आ रहा हो जो कि उनके जो नेशनल हैबिटेट है उसको डिस्टर्ब कर रहा हो.
शाबाश रहमत, वेरी गुड, शाबाश.
सर क्लाइमेट चेंज भी हो सकता है, उस पे कोई इफेक्ट हो सकते हैं,
उसकी वजह से हो सकता है. शाबाश. और आपके ज़हन में कि यार मैंने एक फ्रॉग्स देखे हैं जिनकी टांगे वियर्ड हैं, ये वाइल्ड टाइप और नॉर्मल फ्रॉग से डिफरेंट है. व्हाट माइट बी द रीजन?
सर आई थिंक डाइट और न्यूट्रिशन का भी रोल होता है इसमें.
Okay, maybe the diet and nutrition might be the reasons. So all these things which are coming into your mind, these are the questions, like maybe because of the diet, maybe because of the contamination in the water, maybe because of a predator out there. क्या पता यहाँ पर कोई एनिमल है जो इन्हें खा रहा है. Might be a predator out there. It may be because of predator out there, or it may be because of some external factor like ultraviolet radiations. You know, ultraviolet
सर
radiation.
चाइनीज भी हो सकते हैं सर,
Chinese
चाइनीज भी खाने
Chinese
के
भी
लिए.
हो सकता. Okay, I'm not
ये भी तो
using
हो सकता है सर वो किसी और एरिया के हों.
the lecture will go to the YouTube, so we need to be very non-racist. Okay, cross breeding.
सर ये भी तो हो सकता है सर वो किसी और एरिया के हों. मतलब
हाँ, ये भी हो सकता है वो कहीं और से आए हो, लेकिन they observe that thing, those animals in that field. So अब ये वो students के पास ये observation है, they have to make certain questions out of it. In the same way, you people have made questions. आपने बिल्कुल दुरुस्त किया, and you have done brilliantly by raising very critical points that it is maybe because of the breeding, it is maybe because of the contamination, it might be because of the predator or some other reasons. So let's create some questions. So like it may be something in the water causing the deformities, or for that you have to be more accurate in your observation. Remember, if your observation is incorrect, you might ended up in creating wrong questions. ये जो हम आपस में दोस्तों के साथ, फ्रेंड्स, फैमिली में अक्सर हमारी गड़बड़ होती है ना, उसकी वजह ये होती है कि we have made wrong observations that leads to wrong questions. Then we develop wrong hypothesis, and that ended up in a disaster. So the more accurate you will be in your observation, the more realistic questions you will be creating. अच्छा, अब ऑब्जर्वेशन जो है वो हम कैसे करते हैं, मतलब हाउ वी कैन मेक ऑब्जर्वेशन? वी मेक ऑब्जर्वेशन यूजिंग आवर सेंसेस, लाइक आंखों से देख के, यूजिंग द विजन, बाय हियरिंग, by touching. With the help of our 5 fundamental basic senses, we create observations. But our senses do have limitations. Our eyes cannot see beyond a certain wavelength. Our ears, we cannot hear sound below a certain frequency, and high a certain frequency we can't hear. We have a limitation in our senses as well. So nowadays, with the growth of science and technology, we are enhancing our observations ability. We are enhancing the capacity of our sense organs. So what? For what? to increase the ability of our observation. You can ask why scientists have developed the microscope. To do what? Microscope is not doing anything. Microscope is helping us to increase the potential of our vision, and we able to see things जो हम पहले नहीं देख सकते थे. Why scientists sent the Hubble space telescope to the orbit earlier? They sent the wonderful pictures, to increase the potential of our ability to see into the deep space. तो हम इन सारी टेक्नोलॉजी और ऑर्गन्स टेक्नोलॉजी असिस्टेड सपोर्ट इस्तेमाल करते हैं. डू व्हाट? सो दैट वी कैन मेक accurate observations. The things which we can't measure, we should be able to measure. But whatever the resources you are having, if you are doing or conducting a research project, whatever the resources you are having, you need to be accurate in making those observations as possible, as much as possible, so that your questions should be realistic and it will lead to a real answers of a real problem. You need to be very honest and very accurate with your observation. For example, it's not about just looking at the frog. Oh, मैंने एक frog देखा, उसकी टांग नहीं थी. I mean, you need to find other frogs. You need to find the frogs without deformities. इसको हम कहते हैं wild type. You need to count them as well. There are 10 frogs which are wild type, and out of every 10 frog, I came across one frog with the deformities. You need to count, measure the details, photograph, record the statements, and all these things. You need to note and make these observations as accurate as possible. That will help you to generate real questions which ended up in real knowledge. Imagine if your observation is incorrect. If your observation is incorrect and you're not looking at the thing in the right way, होता है ना, सुबह सुबह आके अब तो आपको यूनिवर्सिटी की अगर मैं मिसाल दूं तो आपका दिल दुखेगा इन हालात में. सुबह सुबह जब आप आगे किसी दोस्त को सलाम करते हैं, वो आपको आंसर करता है, आप यार इसने मुझे रूटीन वाला आंसर नहीं किया, इसके चेहरे पे, इसकी बॉडी लैंग्वेज पे लगता है इसको कोई और मिल गया है. It will be like that. If you are not making an accurate observation, you might ended up in wrong hypothesis. You might ended up in generation of a wrong knowledge. The same goes for the science as well. If you are like conducting a social science experiment or a computer science experiment, like you have a certain things to know, you need to be very honest and accurate in your making your observations, in asking questions to the people and generating your data, so that whatever you will raise after that should have some scientific sense and accuracy. The next thing is that creating a hypothesis. That is also very important. Hypothesis is a possible explanation of or a possible answer of that question. Like deformities क्यों हुई? जो भी कोई इसका एक possible answer होगा, that is the hypothesis. One of the students said it might be because of the contamination in the water. So we can make a line like this. We can make a statement. The contaminations of water can create deformities in the frog. That is a hypothesis. But as a scientist, not every line is a hypothesis. A hypothesis should have a certain important features. The hypothesis should be testable. The hypothesis should be testable. That is why whatever the line you are making, you should be able to test that hypothesis with the help of certain experiment. If you cannot test your hypothesis with an experiment, your hypothesis is not an hypothesis. Like अभी हमने कहा कि इस वजह से हुआ है कि the water is contaminated, so you can test the water. The answer is yes, you can test the water, whether the water is contaminated or not. So if you able to test your hypothesis, that the hypothesis can be accepted as a hypothesis. It should be testable. It's not supposed to be correct always. It's not supposed to be wrong always. You never know until unless you proceed with the experiment to check whether it is right or wrong. So let's make a certain hypothesis. You people have already helped me in creating those hypotheses. Hypothesis number one, the deformities were caused by one or more pollutants in the water, contamination in the water. Very accurate, shabash. Hypothesis number two, the deformities are caused by the attack from some parasite or other frogs or from predator. किसी बीमारी की वजह से, because of the other frog or because of the predator ये सब कुछ हुआ है. And the third hypothesis is that it is because of some external agent like radiations. क्या पता इस इलाके में there are some radiations, ultraviolet radiations that can cause the trouble. Okay, Salman asked a very good question. Salman, मैं तेरी आवाज सुनता ना मेरा दिल खुश होता. Okay, although I am jealous of every handsome boy out there, you know, I don't like you know. So, but Salman asked a very good question in the chat box. The question is that, so what is the difference between a theory and a hypothesis? You should ask me. Let me make your question a bit more accurate. There is no comparison between theory and hypothesis. There is a comparison between theory and a fact, or a theory and a law. So what is the difference between theory and a law? Okay, जल्दी जल्दी बता देता हूँ, ये जरूरी बात है. A theory is that theory is not a law. Okay, theory is इब्राहिम मैं इसको explain करता हूँ, फिर आपको ये clear हो जाएगा. Okay, if there is an observation and you have certain hypothesis about that observation. Evolution, imagine evolution होती है, इंसान बंदर से आया, इंसान के ancestors दूसरे animals से वो grow करते यहाँ तक आए. Darwin's theory of evolution. If you have an observation and you have a hypothesis and you cannot test your hypothesis, you cannot confirm your hypothesis with the help of an experiment, but nobody can deny your hypothesis with the experiment as well. Very important. If you cannot confirm your hypothesis with the help of an experiment, but nobody else can deny your hypothesis as well with the help of their experiment, so whatever you are saying is a theory. It will survive. It's a theory until unless somebody came and proves that whatever you are speaking is rubbish or whatever you are speaking is a fact or a law. Imagine theory of relativity by Einstein. बड़ा फेमस है, आपने सुना होगा. आइंस्टाइन ने theory of relativity पेश किया उस वक्त. The reason why it was theory of relativity, because it cannot be verified. There was no experiment which can be designed in such a way at that time which can confirm that thing. But there was no experiment at that time as well which can deny that thing as well. So what that is a theory. Evolution, we cannot design any experiment to confirm that the evolution is going on. It's a very slow process, but at the same time, we cannot design any experiment to reject that concept as well. So in that case, it's a theory. When you confirm a theory with the help of an experiment, it will become a law, a scientific law. Okay, so these are the three points we are having. Let's just proceed with these three theories one by one. Okay, sorry, not theories. Let's proceed with the three hypotheses. Number one, deformities are caused by the pollutants. Number two, it is because of the attack of the predator or a parasite. Number three, the deformities are caused by the increase in exposure. Okay, Shabash, I might have another question. Oh no, Salman, no. I want to listen. Okay, I want to listen to you. Never say thank to your professor for doing the job. आप लोग सर पे चढ़ा देते हैं प्रोफेसरों को. आजकल हम जिस दुनिया में रहते हैं ना, वहां पर हम जब कोई अपना काम करते हैं ना, when we do our job, even properly in an average way, हम एक ऐसे माशरे में रहते हैं जहां पर अपना काम करना जो है ना वो बहुत अजीम काम, अजमत समझी जाती है. Doing the job, it's like a security guard is trying to protect you. He's get paid for that thing. Okay, I'm get paid for that thing. I want you to ask question. I want you to क्या कहते हैं, आप मुझे delay करवाएं, आप मेरा lecture खराब करें पूछ के, and just try to generate as much as possible out of this thing. Okay, let's proceed with the three things. Number one, I don't mind if it get late. Okay, आमतौर पर दिस इज समथिंग एडिशनल, इसको कहते हैं क्वालिटी एड ऑन स्टफ प्रेडिक्शंस. Every hypothesis have some logical consequences, and those are called as a prediction. It's a statement like cause and effect type of thing. Every hypothesis can be, can be related with the prediction. For example, hypothesis number one, like hypothesis number one was that there might be deformities are caused because of the pollutants. So you can make certain predictions out of it. What will be those predictions? The predictions, the deformities, मैं इब्राहिम आपके point पे आता हूँ, okay? Let me complete this. The deformities were caused by one or more pollutants present in the water. That is our hypothesis number one. Imagine some predictions associated with this hypothesis. I can make certain predictions out of it. Let me make one. Like if the water, it is because of the pollutants present in the water, then the water must contain something very bad in it. पानी में कोई गड़बड़ होनी चाहिए. ठीक है? That is like the prediction. I will complete the things. You can ask the questions in the next session as well. Okay? अगर हम इसको रुकते हैं तो सेशन खत्म होता है तो आप अगले सेशन में मुझसे फर्दर क्वेश्चंस पूछ सकते हैं. इब्राहिम ने पूछा मुझसे कि लाइक पीपल हैव अ हाइपोथेसिस कि भी समर्स में कोरोना वायरस नहीं होगा. द आंसर इज यस. बिल्कुल ठीक ऑब्जर्वेशन है. ये एक हाइपोथेसिस है कि गर्मी की वजह से वायरस जो है वो मर जाएगा. जब तक हम एक एक्सपेरिमेंट नहीं करते, until unless we execute an experiment to confirm that whether it is actually the heat which is killing the virus or not, उस वक्त तक ये हाइपोथेसिस है. The answer is correct. जी. Somebody else raised the hand. किसने हाथ खड़ा किया था?
सर मैंने किया था. सर मैंने पूछना था कि जिस तरह इसमें एक और सर हम निकाल सकते हैं हाइपोथेसिस कि अगर ये पोल्यूटेंट्स हैं वाटर में तो क्या ये सिर्फ फ्रॉग्स को ही कर रहे हैं कि बाकी जानवर जो रह रहे हैं उस हैबिटेट में उनको भी सर इफेक्ट कर रहे हैं?
शाबाश. गुड पॉइंट. ये शाबाश. अगर पोल्यूटेंट्स की वजह से ये है, so somebody else can ask you कि आपने एक हाइपोथेसिस बनाई है कि पोल्यूटेंट्स की वजह से डिफॉर्म हो रहे हैं, तो फिर बाकियों को भी डिफॉर्म होना चाहिए या सिर्फ खास तौर पर फ्रॉग को ही क्यों कर रहे हैं? वेरी गुड पॉइंट. शाबाश. गुड. ये है थॉट प्रोसेस और थिंकिंग जो आपने करनी है. दैट्स कूल. आई एम हैप्पी विद दैट थिंग. सो एवरी हाइपोथेसिस इज एसोसिएटेड विद सर्टेन possible predictions. What will be the possible prediction for the second hypothesis? The second hypothesis is that it is because of the parasite or it is because of the frog. What will be the associated prediction? किसी के पास है इसका associated prediction? जैसा कि मैं आपकी हेल्प करता हूं. अगर ये किसी predator की वजह से हो रहा है, so you should be able to find a predator. आपको उस लेक में एक प्रेडेटर मिलना चाहिए, और जिस लेक में वाइल्ड टाइप और नॉर्मल फ्रॉग्स रहते हैं वहां पर ये प्रेडेटर नहीं होना चाहिए. दिस इज वेरी सिंपल एंड एसोसिएटेड प्रेडिक्शन. ओके, दैट इज हाउ यू कैन रिलेट एवरी हाइपोथेसिस विद सर्टेन पॉसिबल आउटकम्स as statements which you can use to test your hypothesis. अगर आपको पानी में पोल्यूटेंट नहीं मिलता है, the first hypothesis is gone. अगर आपको predator नहीं मिलता है, the second hypothesis is gone. So that is how every hypothesis can be tested with the help of certain possible predictions or deductions. You should be able to generate those things logically. अब हम एक अपने hypothesis को test करेंगे, खास तौर पर थर्ड वाली, और हम सीखेंगे कि हम इसको experimental level पे कैसे लेके जाते हैं, and then how we can conclude results out of it. Okay, let's go and quickly check कि हम hypothesis को how we can confirm or reject, verify or reject our hypothesis. ठीक है, I'm going to share my screen with you once again, and from there we will going to you should be able to see my slides now, and let's move on to the hypothesis number 3. So these are the predictions with hypothesis 1. This is a prediction with hypothesis 2, and these are the associated prediction with the hypothesis number 3. If you remember, what was the hypothesis number 3? That was like it is because of the ultraviolet radiations in that lake. So the predictions associated with ultraviolet light is that if deformities is caused because of the ultraviolet radiation, then if you give ultraviolet radiations to normal frog, they will develop deformities as well. This is like an associated prediction. So that is how. Okay, Asnad asked a question. Sorry. That was a private question. Sorry, आप लोग नाम भूल जाएं किसने पूछा. Okay. So everyone, of course, everyone is a scientist. That's very true. Asnad इसको privately पूछने की जरूरत नहीं थी. वैसे it's a very good point. कि हम लोग, it's not about somebody is labeled as scientist. तो वो scientist है. और वही उसी की जॉब है ये सारे काम करना. We all are scientists in our field. Like whatever we are doing business, we are doing some job, we are doing some things. So in all those things, these are the fundamental principles. वो लोग जो business में कामयाब हैं, आप देखेंगे वो यही करते हैं. At the end of the day, they have wonderful observations. They ask questions to themselves. They create hypotheses. Then they test those hypotheses, and then they follow the right things. It's a very fundamental. Everybody is supposed to be. I don't believe on boundaries, by the way. I don't believe that if you are from computer science, you should not study biology or chemistry. If you're from chemistry, you should not study biology. मैंने PhD में जाके field change किया, जाके medical sciences में मैंने PhD किया. I mean, I have nothing to do with medical sciences for the last several years. I mean, most part of my life, I've considered myself as a chemist. Okay, so but let me conclude. I know it will going to be tough. I mean, for you as well. I understand, because in summers we have to conclude or cover the content in a very short span of time. So, but just stay brave and try your best. I will try my best from my side that you should not get bored enough. Okay, let me take you to test the hypothesis. How we can test the hypothesis? How should we design an experiment? So every experiment, usually there are certain variables, there are certain controls. Control are the other things or the subjects with the normal properties, and variables are the subjects and the other things which have the different properties. You should have an experimental design, how you are going to check your stuff. Think about the third hypothesis. Let me revise you. The third hypothesis is that the deformities are because of the ultraviolet radiation. If ultraviolet radiation is the reason, what will be the prediction? If you expose the normal frogs to ultraviolet radiation, it will lead to the deformities. If you design an experiment based on this prediction, you should be able to verify or reject your hypothesis number 3. So this is the design of that experiment. You have the group. You have a group 1, which is control. It's about the leopard frogs, which we are talking about. They took 100 eggs of that leopard frog, kept them at 25 degrees centigrade without any exposure to ultraviolet radiation. So this is what we call as the control group, growing in a normal way. All these factors, the frog will be the same, number of eggs will be the same, temperature will be the same. They are control factors, they're not non-variables. And what will be the variable? The ultraviolet light. We only change one factor to test whether that factor is important or not, relevant or not. In the second experiment, we took 100 frogs from the same 100 eggs from the same frog, kept it at 25 degree, and then we exposed those eggs with ultraviolet radiations for 15 days. In the third experiment, same number of eggs at same temperature, we expose them for 24 days. You can guess, we increase the variable. So what that means, if the variable is relevant, that will going to affect. If it has no effect, the hypothesis will be rejected. After that, they have done this experiment in this way. This is the control group. The eggs are growing at 25 degrees centigrade. The eggs are growing at 25 degrees centigrade with 15 days of exposure of ultraviolet light using ultraviolet lamp. And in the third experiment, the same number of eggs were growing in a 24 days exposure to the ultraviolet radiations. And these are the results they found. The results were that the control group, all the eggs, when hatched, they produced normal frogs. And it actually matches with our prediction. When the eggs were exposed for 15 days to ultraviolet radiation, still the frogs are perfect. Still the frogs are like wild type. No deformities were observed in 15 days as well. When the exposure time increases to 24 days, they found almost 50% of the frogs born out of those 100 eggs, they born with the deformities. So that is where you can say that ultraviolet radiation is a factor, and in that area where the field trip was taken, in that area, the level of ultraviolet radiation is higher. That is why it is causing the deformities in the frog. And that is here you can get your conclusions. There might be other factors as well, because we have tested only one variable, and that one variable is the ultraviolet radiation. You can ask, somebody else can criticize your results. It may be because of the genes, it may be because of the cousin marriages. One of the students raised a very important point. It may be because of genetical errors, but this is one experiment. So you can say that based on your experiments, that is how it can affect the deformities. And after getting the results, the big job is to share your results with the rest of the world. How we can share our results with the rest of the world? We write publications sharing all the details of our experimental design, our observation, methodology, and our scientific questions, and our results, and what is our inference or what is our understanding about those results. The importance of sharing data with the rest of the world, why we need to share this thing with the rest of the world, so that overall we can grow science, we take the science to the next level, number one. Number two, it can help to analyze and verify your results in a global context. You have done an experiment in Pakistan, somebody else can repeat the same experiment in Korea or in Japan or in USA to confirm, to verify or reject as well. So when you share your data, the other people can use it to proceed further, and that will confirm that whether your understanding about a scientific phenomena is global, is accurate, and it is applicable to every place. So that is why it is important, and that is how scientific facts are developed. इसी तरह से scientific facts जो है ना वो raise होते हैं. जी, I have a raised hand. Let me see who is जी Binish.
सर मेरा था सर कि यानी कि जिस
sorry.
हम शेयर करते हैं तो दूसरे लोग भी उसको वेरीफाई कर सकते हैं कि जिस तरह अगर उनके परफॉर्म करते हैं दूसरी जगह पे तो उसका रिजल्ट सेम आता है, और अगर वो चैलेंज भी कर सकते हैं आपके हाइपोथेसिस को या आपका जो थ्योरी है उसको कि ये गलत चीज है, इस तरह अगर इस तरह किए तो फिर इस तरह क्यों नहीं हो रहा, यानी कि जब हमने परफॉर्म किए तो फिर क्यों नहीं हुआ इसको इफेक्ट.
और मैं आपको एक बात बताऊं जो बहुत जरूरी है, आपको समझ आ जाएगी अब इसकी. ये होती है साइटेशन. When you make a publication, somebody else use that publication, your experiment, your design, and proceed further, and he found the next, वो एक अगली हकीकत को जान लेता है, the next level को understand. He cite your publication. So whenever you have citation of your publication, what that mean? That your work is being done at different places and found true. इस तरीके से scientific facts जो हैं वो over the period of time develop होते हैं. That is how we grow our science today. आज हम साइंस में जहां पर भी खड़े हैं वो इसी वजह से खड़े हैं. तो मैं आपको एक शक्ल दिखाता हूं कि असल में पेपर होता कैसे है. इस तरह से होता है. For example, you can see this paper, the CTCF. Don't worry about the terms. Don't worry about the things. You don't need to understand. Just sharing one example of that paper. CTCF negatively regulates HOX-A10 expression in breast cancer cells. That this is a thing. This is somebody. It's a good guy. It's a good guy. Sorry. It's a bad, not a good guy. It's a bad guy. It's a bad guy. CTCF. It actually negatively affects this thing. This is the good thing. This is the sweet guy. So this bad guy affects the good guy. That's why it can cause the breast cancer. It has found in that cells. So somebody have done that experiment, and then after the experiment, he or she needs to share that thing with the rest of the world. So everybody should be able to access that thing. Everybody should be able to see that thing, and should be able to repeat and let you know whether whatever you believe about that observation is correct or not. What will happen if your experiment tells you that it has no effect? Your hypothesis proved wrong. क्या करेंगे आप उसके बाद? Number one, maybe it is because of your wrong observation. It is maybe because of your wrong questions you have created, or it is maybe because of the less efficient method of experimentation. Your experimentation design might be wrong, or maybe your hypothesis is wrong. So you have to go back, and then you have to recreate and start. If, for example, if you have done a perfect experiment, then your hypothesis is incorrect. You need to go back and create a new hypothesis for that, and then repeat the cycle.